Welcome to GoPowerCat.com's Friday walkthrough, sponsored by Riverbank Brewing. Now, let's head into the studio.
Hey everyone, and welcome in here to the Friday walkthrough. I'm Cole Carmody. With me, as always, Monty Spiller, former Kansas State defensive back, here to recap Kansas State and Arizona, the Wildcats, and preview another matchup of Cats. That's the Wildcats and the Cougars. Kansas State travels to BYU Saturday night for a 9:30 kick on ESPN. We will get into that game in the second half. But before we do the first half of the show, we're going to talk some Cats and Cats. Kansas State walks away with a convincing 31-7 win over the Arizona Wildcats. Monty, you and I both had a unique experience for this game, both coaching high school football. So we were both having to go back in and watch it on replay. When you saw the score, I guess first tell me your experience on Friday night, because it's going to be unique for everyone, but especially for someone who was trying to coach while also keeping track of the game.
Yeah, I will tell you, there were times on the sideline in between possession changes. I was thinking to myself, I wonder what the score is. Unfortunately, the announcers at the game we were at did not announce the game.
Nice.
I will tell you, I did sneak a peek at halftime and saw the score, and it gave me a sense of relief that we were up, but it still was close for my liking. And then when I got home, after the game, I saw that we had won. And the funny thing about it is, I got home. I took a shower, I relaxed, and I was just kind of watching highlights of other games and watching some other games that were actually still going. And I saw where Fox Sports was showing a replay of our game at 11:30. So I tried to watch the game at 11:30 p.m., made it to the first quarter, and that was it. I was like, man, I got to go to bed. So that was kind of my experience, and I rewatched it later the next day. So, yeah.
Yeah, very, very similar. I got home, and due to Wi-Fi issues, I got a text from Fitz. He's like, "Hey, can you get on the podcast?" I'm like, "I literally just got home." But it was quite the experience. K-State obviously walks away with a 31-7 victory. There was a lot to look at in this game. Really felt like a tale of two halves, kind of, I guess. But K-State they were dominant. I mean, the whole entire four quarters, K-State was the better team. They were dominant up front, and after that first drive, Monty, K-State just absolutely whooped Arizona from a physical standpoint. That was vintage Kansas State football.
Yeah, man, you're right. Going back and watching the game, that first drive, it was so different watching the game because I knew the outcome, but I tried to watch for a few things that I normally do and saw how Arizona, I was impressed their first drive. They did move the ball. They did a good job of running, mixing it in the pass a little bit here and there. I knew the quarterback was a good quarterback, and they did some good things, but there was never a sense of panic from my eyesight of K-State sideline, the players after they scored. We kind of looked at it and said, you know what, that's a good drive. We do what we do, and you're right. We were more physical than they were, and I feel like we had more depth than they did, more quality depth than they did, and also we rotated guys in, and when guys came in, there was not a letdown, and we felt comfortable the whole game. So, yeah, K-State definitely sent a message to the fans of Arizona. I'm not going to say they sent a message to the Big 12 because I felt like the previous or current members of the Big 12 knew what we were about, but the newer members had to take notice, and that was a big message to be sent out on that Friday night.
It really was. It kind of felt like a welcome to the Big 12 moment for Arizona. I mean, this was a team who a lot of people thought would contend in the upper half of the conference. I still think due to their athleticism, their playmakers, they're going to have a chance to win a lot of football games. But, man, they got a long ways to go from an interior standpoint if they want to compete with the big dogs in the Big 12. I was really impressed with Kansas State up front. Monty, they allowed 56 yards rushing. And it's not like Arizona didn't try and run the football. Now, obviously, they abandoned the run a little bit when they got behind.
Yeah.
But they tried to run the football, and they just couldn't go anywhere. And for 56 rushing yards, this is not NFL, right? In the NFL, they don't count sack yardage. They count sack yardage, but Monty, K-State only had one sack. So it's not – I think that might have been like a 2-yard loss. So this is true rushing yards. Yeah. And that was – I mean, that is the most – I don't want to say pleasant surprise because I think we all had a hunch that the linebackers would be pretty good. But these Kansas State linebackers, all three of them are playing at an all-conference level.
They are, man. And we knew going into the season we had quality linebackers starting three and then also the backups as well. They come in And it's not a whole lot of letdown because when they come in, they take command of the huddle just like the starters do. But yeah, we got a lot of pride. And the good thing about it is too, our D linemen as well up front and our edges are playing just as good as anybody in the Big 12. And the way our guys communicate, they fly to the ball, and there's never any type of panic or never a sense of I don't know my assignment. There's so much confidence in that defense, and you can see when there's not confidence or when there's miscommunication. The previous week against Tulane in the back end, guys are running wide open. But when we're together on the same page and understand what's going on, we're hard to stop. And to limit a team to 56 yards, I don't think people realize how difficult that is at any level, let alone FBS level, Power 4 level to do that in a ranked team coming in. That's impressive.
It is. And I thought K-State's ability to generate pressure on Noah Fafita was really impressive. Grant, like we said, they only got one sack, but he was he was bailing all game. He didn't want to get sacked. He was just running away, which in turn led to a lot of incompletions and a lot of checkdowns. I mean, that's something that maybe fans don't see, but when a quarterback escapes the pocket, very rarely is he able to just throw the ball down the field. I mean, now we see Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson and some of these other guys do that, but not college quarterbacks. Usually the scramble drill is, hey, we're going to throw the ball 4 yards and hopefully somebody can break a tackle and get upfield. We saw that in the third quarter with Avery Johnson, threw a little 8-yard out route to Jace Brown, who then catches it, and arguably the biggest play of the game, and gets past midfield. But I thought the secondary was really good. Now, McMillan had his, and that's kind of something we talked about on the show was, hey, he is going to get his yards, but you just can't let anybody else beat you. And, Monty, I thought that game plan, bracket McMillan, make sure he doesn't beat you over the top for big plays, worked perfectly.
Absolutely. And I know K-State understood the assignment. I guarantee Arizona saw the film of Tulane the week before. K-State had guys running wide open, and they probably got anxious and excited that they could take advantage of some of the miscues that K-State allowed the week before. But any good coaches make adjustments and come back and get it right. And that's what Coach Kleinerman and the staff did. They did a great job of bracketing him, and the interception in the end zone.
Yeah,
that's vintage cover 3. The safety was deep, and the quarterback saw the safety in the middle, but he didn't see the corner on the outside third, and he did what he's supposed to do. He kept his depth. He had his eyes back on the quarterback to the number 1 receiver, and he made a break on the ball, and that was a huge play. And that right there, as a secondary, speaks volumes on discipline and also how they're on the same page and every man doing their job. And that was awesome play. That was an awesome play.
It was pretty cool. I mean, especially from Keenan Garber, a guy who had struggled the week before. I mean, his ability to just undercut that route, man, he just came out of nowhere. You watch it on TV and you're thinking, oh, this is going to be a touchdown. And then here comes Garber and just cuts in front and makes the interception. I thought that you're right. That was a huge play. But you know what? Here we are, Monty. You were a week too early on the Dylan Edwards punt return for a touchdown. He finally got one, his first as a member of K-State. What did you see on that punt return, and just how cool was that to see Dylan just running down the sideline for 6?
First of all, man, the fact that he had the patience to let the ball bounce, and you can see him kind of surveying the field and understanding, okay, if I get this ball and if I pick it up, this is where I need to go. And the fact that none of our guys were all our guys were disciplined enough not to block in the back and allow him to set the block up. They were patient. He went to the left, and then they set the blocks up after that, and his speed just took over. And it's one of those things where I don't think people realize how difficult it is to run a corner or hit the corner at that magnitude and that fast and not slow down. And when he hit that corner, and it's funny, I've seen jokes about it and memes about it, the one big lineman who had the angle on him. I don't know how many other guys would have caught him regardless, but kudos to that guy that was on the punt team for Arizona. He gave effort, but at that just goes to show Dylan's speed and acceleration, and he's special, man. And I'll be lying if I say I'm so happy he's back where he belongs. I think about if he was to Colorado, the situation there, but we're not going to talk about that. But I'm glad that he's back home in purple, a Kansas kid, and that legacy continues to move forward with K-State and the former players. So he did a good job.
Yeah, that was a really cool play. As far as the offense goes, I mean, I don't even want to say they were stagnant like in the first half. They had an opportunity. It should have been 17-7 at halftime. and it could have been 20-7. There was a missed field goal that was there. So I think the offense did a really good job of moving the ball in the first half. But in the second half, they literally just put their foot on the neck of Arizona and drove the field. And after that first 3 and out, K-State's defense, though, goes and then forces Arizona 3 and out. And like we just talked about, there was a big third down pickup. It felt like that third down pickup. It was like, okay, K-State's going to start to roll. And Avery Johnson finished the day 14-23 for 156 yards and 2 touchdowns. But we finally saw him with some design runs, 17 carries for 110 yards. Now, DJ Giddens' 100-yard streak was snapped. He had 17 for 86. But if he has 3 or 4 more carries, I'd like to think that he would have had that 100 yards. I was really impressed with the offense as a whole on Friday night.
I'm with you, man. And it's clicking. And it's clicking at the right time. They have all the pieces. I would say I would like to see a little more explosive plays out of our receivers. But I understand when you got a Dylan Edwards, when you got an Avery Johnson, when you got a DJ Giddens back there, it's hard to get the ball to everybody. And I love the fact that our receivers take pride in blocking, because a lot of times people overlook that. And when our guys get those big runs, our receivers are downfield giving blocks to the whistle, and that goes a long way. And I know the coaching staff will reward those guys when the time is right and the play is set up. But our receivers take pride in blocking and finishing the block, and that's an extension of our offensive line, like you talked about. I think our offensive line is kind of putting people on notice that, yeah, we've always had a pride about our O-line. We always had quality guys there. But as a whole, we lost a lot of guys last year that were seasoned vets, but we got some quality back this year, and guys are taking pride in it. And to match that speed that we have in the backfield, man, we stay healthy. I don't know. The sky's the limit, dude. The sky's the limit.
You talk about receivers blocking. Trey Spivey, shout out to Trey Spivey, because there was multiple times in that game where he was downfield blocking and helped help the running back or Avery get another 5 or 6 yards. Trey Spivey is, I want to say, the highest graded blocker according to Pro Football Focus on this team. And, that's not something to look past. I think when you have pretty noticeable, there's a few receivers who maybe are underperforming or struggling at the moment. I look at a guy like Dante Cephas, who just hasn't really gotten it going yet. But here comes Trey Spivey. And kind of like we talked about, Monty, like competition is a good thing, because either those guys are going to figure it out or the young guys are going to come up and take their spot. And Trey Spivey is really close to doing that.
Yeah, and I encourage it. I welcome it. And like you said, competition is good, because guys don't get lax. And like you and I both know, being coaches and former players ourselves, we want one thing I always tell our kids at the high school level. I said, don't be afraid to embarrass your teammate. Make him work. I said, I'd rather you embarrass him here at practice than he get embarrassed by the opposite team on Friday. So make him work. I know y'all boys or whatever, but push for that position. Make him work. Make him a better player. In K-State is full of dudes who make the guy in front of them work. And I think they recognize that too. And they also understand that Coach Kleiman is not afraid to play a true freshman.
Yeah. I mean, it's really going to come down to the receiver spot is who's willing to block,
yeah.
right? Like, because K-State runs the football so much, catching the ball is big. Obviously, you got to catch it when it's thrown to you. But I think K-State's going to be a little bit more worried about, can you hold your blocks on the outside? Because that could be the difference between a first down and a touchdown.
Yep.
And so I'll be interested to see what that rotation looks like on Saturday. But we got to finish the first half by talking about the atmosphere, Monty, because watching it on TV, you could just tell that there was something different in the air on Friday night. And listening to Chris Kleiman's comments after the game, he said this is the best he's been around Bill Snyder Family Stadium. People were fired up for that game. I was a little worried. I'm not going to lie. I was a little worried about the energy on Friday night. Maybe people are getting off work and they're going to the game, but it's clear. People didn't get off work. They took off work, and they were ready to go on Friday night, and it was very noticeable on TV.
Yeah, I'm not what you would call a envious person. I'm not raised that way. I don't believe in that. But I was a little envious of people who made it to the game Friday. I had several co-workers who went to the game, and they were sharing tailgate pictures, and they were talking about it. A couple of my co-workers they rode their Harleys, or they were with their husbands on their Harleys, vice versa. And they were just telling me how awesome the environment was, how loud it was, with the fireworks and everything. And I can just imagine how good it was to be there. But yeah, the environment on TV looked crazy, and it was kind of hopefully the people that travel from Arizona got to experience what it's like to be in a legit Big 12 environment. I know some people would beg to differ, and compare it to other environments, but we are, in my opinion, the best experience in college football, especially for the Big 12. So hopefully that didn't disappoint, and the fact that the Cats won convincingly probably made it better. So yeah, it was awesome.
I think K-State opened a lot of eyes nationally on Friday night. They had a super high rating. It was like over, I want to say it was like the fourth most watched college football game of the weekend. And so there was a lot of eyes on Kansas State, a lot of eyes on Chris Kleiman's squad. And there will be a lot of eyes on Chris Kleiman's squad on Saturday night. For those who are awake, the 9:30 kickoff, Kansas State and BYU at Lavelle Edwards Stadium in Provo, Utah. Ryan Gilbert, Tim Fitzgerald will be at the game. I will be trying to drink as much caffeine as possible to stay awake. I'm not used to staying up that late. Monty, it's going to be fun. We're going to preview that and much more when we come back on the other side. This is the Friday Walkthrough.
It's time to take a break for our sponsors. We'll be back with more from GoPowerCat.com.
Nestled in the heart of beautiful and historic Council Grove, Kansas, Riverbank Brewing is the perfect place to stop before or after the game. Riverbank Brewing, located in downtown Council Grove.
Now let's head back to the show for more K-State sports coverage from GoPowerCat.com.
Welcome back in here to the Friday Walkthrough. Cole Carmody with Monty Spiller. Shout out to Riverbank Brewing for sponsoring all of the episodes this season. Make sure you stop on in to Riverbank and grab yourself a nice little drink before Kansas State and BYU play in Provo, Utah. I don't know how many of those you can, if Riverbank would even be allowed to open in Provo, Utah. But you know what, K-State fans, if you are watching this and you're in Utah right now, go somewhere and pick up a Sprite. Watch some football. There's a lot of good games on this weekend, Monty, but I'm really focused on this K-State game, not just because I cover the team and there's all the interesting storylines, but because this could be a really good football game. BYU comes in 3-0 with wins over Southern Illinois, on the road at SMU, and on the road at Wyoming. And we'll get into that game, Monty, but give me your initial thoughts on this game, because this might be K-State's toughest test just yet.
I agree. Not just because of the team, but the location, the time of the game, the altitude, you name it. And BYU is no stranger to big games. And I took the liberty to watch the Wyoming BYU game live and see what they do. And they got some talented players now. Don't get me wrong. Although Wyoming is not what you call a quality team at this point, they make some plays at certain times, but BYU controlled the game for the most part. And they opened my eyes. I knew a little bit about them, but seeing them play live on TV, I gained some new respect for them. And I've heard stories about night games at Provo. They get pretty rowdy, and that can be a hard environment to play in. So honestly, I'm a little bit worried about this game.
Yeah. Okay. So I got to ask you this as a former player. You've experienced what Bill Snyder Family Stadium is like. You've experienced other places. But when you go into a game and you know it's going to be a hostile environment, having that experience of playing at home in front of a hostile environment all the time. Now, granted, when you're on defense, and so it's always loud when you're out there at home games. It's quiet when you're on the road. But is there something about going into a place where you have that experience of playing in a big game? I would have to imagine that it maybe doesn't affect you as much as it does, say, another FCS school like we talked about with UT Martin, who's not used to that on a week-in, week-out basis. If you're used to that, I wonder how much that actually affects you.
And actually, honestly, as a player, for me, I love playing at home, but I was a lot more relaxed playing on the road because, people were watching you, but at home, you have friends and family right there in the stands, and they're watching your every move because they're specifically watching you, not just the game. And on the road, it's on TV, and as you travel with them, you have fans talking smack to you, and you buy into it. And it's one of those things where it brings you closer together as a group, as a unit, as a team. And I think that takes the stress off of you, and it pumps you up, though. And I feel like as a defensive player, is nothing like stopping the home team on offense and shushing that crowd. That's awesome. And then looking back at the student section and being like, now what? So I think our guys will invite the competition and invite the environment and the fans. But honestly, it's fun, man. It's hard to explain. It gives you goosebumps.
Yeah, and Lavelle Edwards at night. I've heard amazing things. I'll be curious to hear what Fitz and Gilbert has to say when they return home, and players as well. But SMU, who they beat on the road, was supposed to be pretty good. And at the time, that win in week 2 probably looked pretty good. But SMU, I think we all realized, maybe not the best team. And so they're 3-0. And again, I don't put much stock into the game 1 against Southern Illinois. I really don't put a lot of stock against SMU. I mean, it's a good win, but that game was ugly. It was 18-15. There was 1 offensive touchdown scored and a safety. Not fun times. And then the game, as you just mentioned, against Wyoming, 34-14, they did have a kickoff return for a touchdown. So that was a big play that BYU had. But I saw a lot of flaws. I've seen a lot of flaws when I look at BYU on tape.
No, I agree. And the thing about it is, like in my mind, and I'm pretty sure Coach Clanderman and the rest of the staff can see it on film and is aware of it. BYU seems like to be one of those teams when they use emotion to go. And when things are going good, they use that. But if they're struggling, it's a domino effect, and they allow certain things to happen that some teams can bounce back from, and they won't. But if they're going good, I can see them being one of those teams that's going to use their crowd to their advantage to get going and to complete some passes. Also, they scare me. For some reason, I feel like they are not afraid to use trick plays. They're not afraid to go for it on fourth down. They're one of the teams, they have nothing to lose because you got a ranked K-State coming in, Big 12 opener. And if they lose, hey, everybody expecting them to lose. So why not throw the kitchen sink at K-State and see what happens? So we got to be prepared for everything.
You know what it reminds me of? Honestly, it reminds me of a few years ago when Oklahoma came into Bill Snyder Family Stadium with Jalen Hurts at quarterback, CeeDee Lamb at receiver, and I want to say the point spread, now it's only 7.5 for K-State, but I want to say for Oklahoma it was like a double-digit spread. Like, it was a lot. And people are like, well, if K-State, plays well, maybe they'll have a chance. Nobody really gave K-State a chance. And then what'd they do? They got a pick six. They had, there was an onside kick that maybe Oklahoma should have got, but it was actually K-State's. Some things, the ball bounces certain ways, and K-State ends up holding on and walking out the win. I don't think BYU is going to win this game, and I'll tell you why here in a second. But you're right. Like, anytime a team plays with nothing to lose, that's scary. Because K-State right now, I don't want to say they're playing with everything to lose, but there's a lot on the line for K-State. BYU is not expected to compete in this conference. They're going to be lucky. The expectations coming into the season would, hey, if they make a bowl game, it's a good season. This is a rebuilding team. You're right. Teams who have nothing to lose are very scary.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where K-State, we don't want to, one game can or can't make a break season, but now with the college playoff the way it is, you got to get to the Big 12 championship. And so many teams playing close. And honestly, and you probably have thought about this too, say we do win this game on Saturday. Who do we have next week? Oklahoma State, who could potentially come in also undefeated, ranked in the top 10 at that point, come to us. And that game right there is like, man, this is going to catapult the team to the top of the Big 12 by themselves or put you in the middle or even the lower tier. So it's a big game. I don't want to look ahead, but I think our guys are seasoned enough. We have enough veterans that have been there that we won't get there and panic, and we'll be well coached. But it makes it fun, building up to the game. But I would be lying to you if I say I won't be nervous about the game. But once it gets started, I'll relax a little bit.
It's going to be a long Saturday sitting around doing nothing. And it's going to be a long Saturday for those guys, too. I mean, anytime you play in primetime, the routines are messed up. And honestly, it's probably a good thing K-State played at 7 o'clock on Friday because Chris Kleiman said that they were going to have the exact same routine. So that'll be interesting to watch. I want to look at this BYU team and kind of give you some numbers here. First of all, I watched a lot of that BYU Wyoming game, and I watched some of the SMU BYU game. And I bluntly put, Monty, I don't think BYU's offensive line is very good. And, I know from what I've seen, first of all, BYU fans are absolutely amazing. And so I know what we've talked about this, but I've also heard that BYU fans have been watching a lot of K-State YouTube recently. So if you're watching this and you're a BYU fan, I am not trying to be mean. I think BYU has a chance to be really good this year. I just don't think your offensive line is very good. Wyoming was able to get pressure constantly, and credit Jake Retzloff, the quarterback at BYU, who's also the leading rusher, which is kind of a red flag for BYU's offense. But credit him, he's able to get out of the pocket and he's able to make plays. But I just don't know if he's going to be able to do that because K-State's linebackers are so good. You put a spy on that guy, and if you rush 3 or 4, you're going to be able to get home. And you have Desmond Purnell or Austin Romaine or Austin Moore spying the quarterback. It puts a lot of pressure on the BYU offense to be perfect.
It does. And it's one of those things, too, like going back to the O-line, watching K-State's linebackers and D-line play and watching watching BYU's O-line play. If I'm Clanderman, I'm playing a lot of man coverage. And the reason being, we're bringing heat. And you guys, somebody's going to come free. And I trust our guys enough to play man-to-man and not worrying about have to double a guy or play zone. Now, I wouldn't play man the whole game, but here's the question for BYU. Can you guys block all 6 guys or all 7 guys that we bring? And if so, how long can you do that? And,
Yeah.
you know, the quarterback scrambled. He's a mobile quarterback, but at some point he's going to make a mistake, and K-State will take advantage of it. So the challenge is there. I like our odds, but it'll be interesting to see how we approach the game.
So Retzlaff is 7 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He has a 60% completion percentage, which you like to see that be quite a bit higher for a guy who is obviously super. The offense is super reliant on. He averages 4.7 yards per carry, and he's the leading rusher. So what that tells me is he maybe doesn't get sacked a lot, but he also doesn't have a lot of big runs. And so it'll be interesting to see if there's more design runs. How do they try and keep him healthy? Because if you're K-State's defense, man, you know that's their dude. You're going to be coming and you're going to be teeing off all game. And that's just how the mindset of the defense has to work. You talk about it all the time, the lynch mob mentality. This defense has a chance to put up some pretty big numbers. As long as they can limit the big plays, I really like K-State's chances on defense. On the offensive side of the ball, BYU does not get a lot of pressure. They've recorded 6 sacks in 3 games. That, to me, is an alarming stat, because if you let Avery Johnson sit in the pocket, he will pick you apart.
He will. And a lot of people always talk about Avery and his running game and how he needs to improve on his passing game, but you give him time, he's going to pick you apart, and he's going to do it efficiently. And then at some point when you decide to put pressure on him, he gets out the pocket. And like you've seen and the rest of the country's seen, he can hit the corner and be gone and make it look effortless. So you got to pick your poison on that too. And I will say this about BYU. I think we're more talented across the board in every position and in depth also. But I will say they have a history of not laying down against anybody. And that's one thing I respect about them and their culture. And no matter who's the coach, they've always had an attitude of we're going to fight you. And no matter how much we're down by or how much we're up by, we're going to fight you and play hard. So I know K-State understands that, and they're going in ready for battle. But I think K-State will come out victorious because we just have more weapons and more tools at disposal right now on both sides of the ball. So I think it should be a good game, but we should come out on top.
I think K-State is more talented. I think they're faster. I think they're more physical. Mm-hmm. But you want to talk about guys being in the right spot and being well coached. That is BYU. And that's how they played. Even last year, they took Oklahoma down to the wire, and that team was way worse than this team is this year. And so this BYU team is going to be ready to play. They're not going to back off. Every game they were in last year, it felt like. And you know what? They are well coached. That place is going to be jumping like we talked about. It's going to be a whiteout for BYU. K-State is wearing their purples on the road. I would have to do some research, Monty. But it sure feels like this is the first time in a really long time that K-State is wearing purple on the road. I don't know if you ever did that or not. But, what else do we want to see as we kind of wrap up the show here? Because I'm just looking for, honestly, we talk about survive and advance. This just seems like one of those games where as long as you escape with the win and get ready for next week, that's all that really matters.
Yeah, honestly, everything that we've seen so far, if we don't have to show anything else that we haven't seen yet, don't show it, you know, because I don't want to give Oklahoma State any fuel for fire to prepare for anything. But my main thing is get the win, remain physical, and come out unscathed, nobody injured, and just go into the next week riding high. But my main thing is stay consistent and continue to improve on the things that we did well last week against Arizona and not be settled. A lot of times, in young people, no matter who you are, it's easy to read the headlines because everybody's talking about K-State. Wow, where these guys come from, or we were wrong about K-State, or K-State's riding high. You know, Dylan got Special Teams Player of the Week for the Big 12, which is well deserved. Guys got noticed a lot. Avery got talked about more as a potential Heisman candidate. Now he should be in this conversation. And I know our kids are grounded, but it's easy to find media everywhere. So I want our kids to stay focused on the goal and one game at a time, 1-0 against BYU, and come out healthy. That's my hope.
So as we get into score predictions here, I'll go first, Monty, and I'll let you close it before we sign off here. I've been thinking about this game a lot, and like I mentioned, the spread is 7 or 7.5. I think this is going to be a really close game. I could see this game being tied. I'm not going to say it's going to be like Tulane. I don't think if K-State falls behind in this game, it's going to be tough. They can still come back and win, but you do not want to be playing from behind in that atmosphere. I think getting off to a good start, or at least a manageable start, is really important. If I'm K-State, I'm drawing up some big plays early on, taking some shots down the field, try and take some juice out of the crowd in Provo. I think this will be a pretty good game. I can kind of see it being a one-score game throughout much of the first half. I'm going to go ahead and say K-State wins this game, kind of pulls away in the second half, 31-17.
It's good. That's a good score. I was thinking 35-17.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking 35. Go ahead.
Are you on the same page as me? Like, I just feel like this is going to be a close game, and then K-State will turn it on. But I'm fully expecting BYU to give K-State a great game.
No, absolutely. I think outside Tulane game, we made a lot of mistakes, but this is probably our toughest game yet. And I think I said it before. I feel like K-State specials are going to show up big and be a deciding factor to swing momentum. And like when something goes bad for us, potentially our special teams picks it up and say, you know what, this happened, but watch this. And we do something great to get a score or to put us in position to score. So I anticipate that as well.
It should be a fun night. I know I'm going to stay up. Monty, you're going to stay up. Everyone watching this will probably stay up, or at least try to. If you fall asleep, you don't have to tell anybody. Just, stay up till 4 in the morning and watch the rest of the game, and then you can go back to sleep. Be sure after the game, we are not going to go live at 3 in the morning, but we will go live at 10 a.m. on Sunday morning. So be sure to join us for the live PowerCat post-game show that we will be live on YouTube. But enjoy the game wherever you may be. I will be on my couch enjoying it with, just cuddled up in a blanket. Hopefully watching Kansas State take care of business against BYU in Provo, 9:30 ESPN Saturday night. Enjoy the game wherever you may be. We will talk to you next week right here on the Friday Walkthrough.
Thank you for watching the Friday Walkthrough, sponsored by Riverbank Brewing. This has been a GoPowerCat.com and Spirit Street production.